Your Series X might be getting slimmer this year. You won't believe what's on Phil Spencer's shelf, and Deathloop is finally making its way over to Xbox consoles. Let's discuss. And here to discuss with me is Jimmy Champagne, who runs a little channel called PS Ready. But we don't have to talk about that right now. We can talk about his other channel though, Steam Deck. No, not the Steam Deck.
Just Deck Ready.
Yeah, just Deck Ready.
Deck Ready is more similar, I feel, to Xbox Ready because, you know, it's a handheld PC. Xbox releases their games on Steam, even though they're also on Game Pass. It's a whole thing. But yeah, you got some cool Xbox news to talk about here today.
I got a lot of Xbox news, so much news. Like it was hard to like narrow it down. Actually, no, there's not. Like
we got 3 good topics.
Yeah, it's been pretty slow on the news front, but there is some interesting stuff going on. First of all, Deathloop, which up until this point has been a PlayStation exclusive, the timed exclusivity deal that PlayStation Sony had on Deathloop is coming to an end soon, meaning that it will be free to make its way over to Xbox consoles where it belongs. And we all knew this was coming. Obviously, Deathloop, made by Arkane Studios, which is under the Bethesda Publishing Studios umbrella, which is owned by Microsoft. So we knew this was coming. It was this weird period of time where it was like a Microsoft Xbox game that you can only play on a PlayStation. But it's finally, that time is coming to an end. What do you think about it?
So we got to give PlayStation some credit here for how much marketing they did for Deathloop. They knew well in advance that Microsoft was buying Bethesda, but they still did state of plays, they did showcases, they did Twitter marketing, trailers, all this stuff. And then Deathloop comes out, gets tons and tons of 10 out of 10 reviews. The weird thing there was a lot of the YouTubers I watch, my favorite YouTuber, G-Man Lives, they were a little harsher on the game, but then the normal like writer critics, I don't really, the games journalists, they were giving it 10 out of 10s. I decided to just see for myself. I picked the game up. It is extremely good. I put a solid 20-25 hours into it. I did literally everything you can do in this game. I got all the weapons. I figured out all the different ways you can kill the visionaries. And by the end of it, I was so absolutely overpowered that I did the final loop where you kill everyone in one run. I did it first try and it was awesome. It's such a great game. The issue we're going to face here, though, with this game, with Ghostwire Tokyo, we're seeing it now with Bug Snacks, as I've seen. These games that come to PlayStation first, they could be as good as they could be, right? They could be perfect, they could run well, they could look great. When they come to Xbox, they're just ultimately going to be better because they're going to have new content, which is what's happening with Bug Snacks, as I understand.
Yeah, Bug Snacks, that's one I gotta admit right now, guys, I really don't care about.
It's more for the news story, right? Like, I also, you know, I love PlayStation. I saw this game and it brought me back to Octodad, right? That was a meme when the PS4 came out. It's the same developer. I was like, this is cool. I understand why this is becoming a meme game. It doesn't look like something that's for me. I took one look at Bug Snacks. I felt the same thing. But it's a good example that we have of a game coming to Xbox from PlayStation and having more content, which is what's going to happen with Deathloop probably around September if I had to put money on it.
We know that both, you know, PlayStation and Xbox, they do the timed exclusivity deals. More recently, Xbox has been in the headlines for like full-on acquisitions, but I mean, they've dabbled in that too. Like we know they had some crazy one for that Tomb Raider game with Crystal Dynamics Xbox.
Gosh, yeah.
That was just like, why did you do this? Yeah, it's a risky game. I think it paid off for Sony for sure. I don't know how many copies of Deathloop sold, but I feel like Deathloop was like a system seller almost for PlayStation 5s as well.
Yeah, they didn't have any huge games at the end of last year, right? They were still riding that train of re-releasing Ghost of Tsushima with the new expansion, the PS5 patch. They did the PS5 patch for Horizon Zero Dawn that made it run at 60. They were just patching PS4 games and adding a little bit of content and doing director's cuts. So yeah, having a new game in Deathloop that was exclusive, while Xbox really only had, as far as I'm aware, Gears Tactics and Halo Infinite to look forward to.
Yeah.
That helped out Sony quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, it is an interesting thing to see, like when these games that were formerly only playable on PlayStation consoles make their way over to Xbox consoles. We saw that with MLB The Show last year, Bug Snacks, like you were just talking about, Deathloop on the way, Ghostwire Tokyo as well. Interesting phenomena for sure. Nice. I am made of last! Make sure you go on down to the merch shelf in the description or go to stayxboxready.com for your very own Maidenless t-shirt. If you use the code STAYREADY, you get 10% off your purchase.
What's the next topic you got for me?
The next topic, ooh, yeah. Yeah, I think you'll like this because Jimmy, one thing you got to know about him is that he hates stuff that is like obviously fake. He hates, so like you show like that TikTok that was going around that was like, I put my boyfriend's PS5 in the sink and I was washing it. That was like, everyone was like, Jimmy, check this out, check this out. He was like, I hate this. I can't freaking watch this.
Like, come on, like people believe this? Like,
and I feel like
ruins my day.
Yeah, this is along the same level of like conspiracy theory level almost. So basically what happened was that Phil Spencer was doing this interview and he was filming from his home setup, and in the background on the shelf there is a sword. It is just a sword. I mean, you can take a look at it yourself, but like, does this look like a sword that to you screams Elden Ring?
So I did see that it is from Elden Ring because there's a picture of the box that it came in.
Yeah,
like
but first impressions, if you were to see that sword,
I'd
be like Elden Ring.
I'd be like, oh, it's like from The Witcher or something.
Something similar happened with this controller that they put out. It was a blue Xbox controller. And people were like, this is a Sonic controller. They're gonna buy Sega. And this was like 2 years ago. And it's like, okay, they have not bought Sega, obviously. And I don't think they will. But people were like, yeah, this blue controller, gonna buy Sega. And yeah, what ended up coming out, so you see this sword. Someone else did like some next level detective work and traced the origin of the sword, which came in a box that had the twin, Melania and Makilla. It had her helmet on it. It was like a token, and it came in like this Elden Ring looking box, which led people to be like, is Xbox, Microsoft buying From Software? And at this point, I think we can both agree, right, that it's just like From Software is like a whole different beast.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think anyone's gonna buy From Software.
Yeah,
they don't need to be bought. I don't like this mentality, this road everyone's going down, where every studio, every publisher needs to be bought by Microsoft or Sony. That is ultimately bad for everyone, because we've seen Microsoft shut down some pretty big studios like Lionhead just because the Fable series never worked out. Now they're admitting that that was probably a mistake, and it was.
Microsoft, when they bought Activision Blizzard, people all of a sudden think that they can do anything. Like, if you could buy a publisher as big as Activision Blizzard, then they could buy whatever they want, essentially. I mean, first of all, like, there's so much being tied up with Microsoft, I feel like, in that Activision deal, trying to put it through. And second of all, people have to remember, like, Activision Blizzard was, like, on the verge of ruin almost, and From Software is like, its stock has never been higher, I feel like, with the release of Elden Ring and its popularity.
Bethesda's the one studio where I can definitely see an improvement after they've been purchased, because for years leading up to that purchase, the people who were on the board of Bethesda, like Bethesda was a privately owned company, or ZeniMax Studios was, and there were a ton of weird people on that board, like pro baseball players, people like politicians' brothers were on that board, and you could see them kind of restructuring ZeniMax for a sale. You had Fallout 76. It was basically like taking Fallout, one of their biggest IPs, and making it an online game where they could have microtransactions, battle passes. Wolfenstein had co-op and microtransactions. Rage 2 was a game where you had microtransactions. They were trying to get these games out there that had online functionality for no reason, to build up huge player bases so that they could be sold, and then immediately when they get sold, Xbox just takes them back to the single player realm where they belong. So there are good things that come from studios getting purchased. I just don't think From Software is A, in a position where they can be purchased, and B, is in a position where they should be purchased. Like, let them make third-party games.
It would take a massive sum. I mean, they just proved to the world with Elden Ring. I mean, Dark Souls and the Souls games, they've always been popular games, well-reviewed, but I feel like Elden Ring really made a jump to the mainstream gaming audience in a way that those previous games have not. Man, like, after that, like, there's just no way that anyone's gonna buy them right now. At least that's what I think.
I think there are two times you would have ever seen From Software get bought. It was when Demon Souls came out. Sony looked at that and said, this game is so weird that we're not even gonna publish it in the West. They let Atlas publish it in the West, which was a huge mistake. And then the second time was when Bloodborne came out, which is one of the most beloved PlayStation 4 games. Like, people adore that game, myself included. And Sony is like, yeah, that one's gonna sit and rot. We're not touching that. We're not patching it. That game still has horrible frame rate issues, even if you play it on a PS5. So they've had two opportunities, I think, to buy From Software. They screwed them both up. Just leave From Software alone. Let them make the games they want to make. Bandai Namco obviously loves working with them. Let that work out.
But yeah, next up, we're going to talk about something that's picked up a little bit of traction in terms of the rumors and the reporting. It's this new mystery power efficient chip that Microsoft is apparently very far along in making and integrating in future Xbox consoles, perhaps. It was first reported by Brad Sams, YouTuber, tech journalist, also responsible for the Xbox mini fridge. I always put that. I just think that's a fun fact. Yeah, he was basically saying that he had knowledge of this new chip, new GPU that Microsoft is working on that was more power efficient, and what kind of possibilities that could lead to for Xbox hardware going forward. But I'm really not you know way more about GPUs
and I don't know
hardware of things than I do. So if he doesn't know a lot, what does that say about me? But yeah, what are your thoughts about this new mystery chip and what it could mean for Xbox consoles going forward?
I think this is just the same thing we went through last summer with PlayStation. You guys probably saw it. Probably not on Austin Evans' channel.
Yeah.
You probably saw it on other channels, but Austin and I were able to get our hands on the first hardware revision of the PS5. And basically what happened is they're using a smaller heatsink that makes it run a little bit hotter. They're not passing that discount on to the consumer. They're obviously trying to make it cheaper to produce a PS5 because they're taking a loss on the PS5, or at least breaking even. So anything they can do to make that cost of development cheaper, they're probably going to do. And after reading about this Xbox stuff, it kind of seems like the same situation where, do you think they're going to make a slim model and release a Slim Series X, or do you think this is just a...
Yeah, I mean... From the original report that broke about it, it seemed that they were aiming for a more power-efficient chip that could possibly need less cooling, sort of in that similar way of the smaller heatsink for the PS5. I know a lot of people would be hungry for a digital version of the Xbox Series X that could be very much slimmer than the original right now, since there's no disc drive. We've obviously seen that with the digital versus the physical copy of the PS5. Without the disc drive, it's the smallest little line. Yeah.
So are you thinking we keep the Series S, right? But we lower the price to 250, 300. We introduce a discless Series X for around 400 and then keep the disc one at 5?
I think it will be tricky because the whole appeal of the Series S is the price, right?
Yes.
It's digital, it's cheap, and the Series S has been pretty much it's been carrying the Xbox sales right now. I mean,
it's the one you can buy.
Yeah, because it's the one you can buy, and it's obviously people want a budget next gen console, I feel like, and the Xbox has been, Series X and the Series S has been outselling PS5s in these past couple months in some markets. And in that original report, it is important to say that Brad Sams was you're probably not gonna notice a difference when they integrate this chip, when they're finally decide to do it, whenever that is.
That's ideal. You want that. You don't want to see a difference, because if you're making the chip smaller, the difference you would see is negative.
Yeah.
Like with the PlayStation, where it runs a little hotter. So in the good sense, you don't want it to run in a noticeably different way, unless it's going to run better, which it probably won't. That just kind of makes me think this is just going to be an internal change and not a new SKU of the Xbox, because they just got to the point this month, I think, right? Where you can get a Series X. So and it's the same thing on PlayStation. You're going to introduce a new console while people still can't get the original one. It just seems like a PR nightmare, doesn't it?
They're releasing the special edition consoles. I can't even get a regular one, so I can't imagine how mad people would be if they decided to release a Slim, Pro, whatever version, digital version, when people still can't get their hands on a regular base Series X. And yeah, I feel like you were saying you were spot on with the fact that it's better if you integrate this chip and you don't notice it, right? I have a PS5, and I personally don't even know if I have the smaller heatsink version or the original version. I know you have not, because you got a lot of flack for that original video. It was a little controversial, to say the least.
Yeah, it runs hotter. It's not actually doing anything for performance, which is fine. I wish that Sony and Microsoft, when they make these changes, would kind of pass that discount on to the consumer a little bit, maybe knock $50 off these prices. But it's clear, I don't think we're going to see a price drop on either of these consoles until that slim model comes out. And even then, I feel like the maximum they drop is $100. Like, I don't think Sony's going to start selling the digital edition of the PS5. I think they'll just have a disc version that's $400, and then the PS5 Pro will be $500, and then the Xbox Series X Pro will be the same thing, and then the Series S will stay where it's at.
I think the big question is like, is this new chip, is it going to help with console availability? And I feel like that's not something that we saw when the PS5 did.
Definitely not. It just makes it cheaper to produce, which makes it kind of a non-story unless they drastically screw up and it makes a terrible Xbox Series X and they have the Red Ring of Death Part 2. No. Which none of us want. That would be horrible. Only thing I know for sure is that if they do introduce a new chip, you're going to see a teardown of it here first on Xbox Ready. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Ray, thanks so much for having me on here.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, your insight. Are you working on anything right now that you want to plug?
We're actually about to film the reverse of this video where we talk about the biggest PlayStation news. So if you'd like to watch that video, go subscribe to PS Ready. And if you want to know what's going on in the world of the Steam Deck, you can subscribe to Deck Ready.
Anyway, guys, thanks so much for stopping by for the new weekend edition of Xbox Ready, the beefy premium Xbox Ready edition. Make sure you go and follow me on Twitter at StayXboxReady. Reach out to me on my other platforms, and we'll see you in the next video.